So I failed my PT test. I always wonder what happens. I mean, I've heard from people what happens. I almost rear ended that guy. Oh my gosh. I always wondered what happens. By the way, we're in Tucson, Arizona right now. We're on vacation. And this happened last week. Once you're in the Air Force, after basic training and everything, you still have to take a PT test at least once a year. If you score above a 90, it's once a year. If you score below a 90, it's once every 6 months. So obviously you want to shoot for the 90s, so you don't have to test every year. I always hit the 80s. I've never hit above 80, I think 88 or something like that, and that was during basic training. So I've been taking it every 6 months. Now, if you don't already know, there's 5 components: the run, push-ups, sit-ups, waist measurement. 4 components. And the only thing that used to always get me was sit-ups. When I got to basic training, I could only do like 15 sit-ups, and 42 is the minimum for my age group. And it took 2 months, but I hit 42 when I left, and I usually hit in the 50s or so now. So those were good. But for some reason, what started deteriorating was the run. I ran track in high school and in college, so I never thought I'd have a problem with running. I am one of the worst runners now that you'll ever meet. I have such a hard time with running. So that brings us to present day. I took my PT test 6 months ago in January. Did fine. I think I got like a 12 something on the run, when the minimum is 13:36. Okay. So my PT test comes around July, and I'm always nervous for a PT test. Everyone's always nervous for a PT test. So I prepared. I ran as much as I could. I went to PT, like squadron PT or whatever, flight PT 3 times a week, and I felt like I was pretty ready for the run / the rest of the components. So the morning of my PT test, I had the runs. Like, I got up feeling sick, went and had diarrhea twice, and my PT test was at 7:30 in the morning. And the way how the Air Force does it is you can either be doing your run inside on an indoor track or outside. It all depends on the weather. So that morning, it was pretty hot already, but I purposefully scheduled it early in the morning so that we could run on the outdoor track, because it's only obviously 6 laps for a mile and a half, but on the indoor track, it's in our track at least 16.4 laps is a mile and a half, which is really hard to pace yourself, so I wanted to do it on the outdoor track. So, get to my PT test, I do the push-ups and sit-ups first, and I finished my push-ups, and I just felt like death as soon as I finished my push-ups. And I got up, and I told my proctor, hey, I don't feel very good, I don't know if I can do the run. And he's like, do you want to claim medical? Which I'd never even ever considered really in a PT test. And I was like, let me see how I feel. So we had about a 10-minute rest till a run. So I get out there to do the run, and I could barely walk at this point. And I got out there, I felt like I was in space, just floating. And I told my proctor again, hey man, like I really don't feel good. And we talked, and he was like, why don't you just run it and see how you do? And you can still claim medical. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, so I had a pacer with me, somebody that would run with me. I started running. I finished the first lap, and I felt like I just got hit with a truck. I just died on the track. And like by the end of it, 6 laps later, I crossed the finish line 14 seconds too slow, and failed my PT test. So a lot of things happen when you fail a PT test. In the words of my flight chief, I'd be in less trouble if I leaned across his desk and punched him in the face than I would if I failed a PT test. Obviously, it's an exaggeration, but PT tests are taken really seriously. So I immediately called my work, and because the worst thing you can do is try to hide that. So I called and I was like, hey, this just happened, but I'm claiming medical because I don't feel normal. I ran this last week and I did fine. So when you claim medical, next thing you got to do is go to the hospital. You have to see a doctor. With our policy, it's within 5 days. So I head out to the hospital. They tell me I have to schedule an appointment with my PCM, your primary care manager. And I do that. 4 days later, I go see her. Now, during that time, my commander's made aware of what happened, my chief, my first sergeant. They're all understanding, knowing what's going on. And I meet with several different people. A lot happens within a short period of time. Because typically your first PT test failure is an LOC, your second one is an LOR, your third one is a loss of rank, and your fourth one usually you're out. And that's within a 2-year period. So you might fail one and then pass one and then fail another one within the 2-year period. It still counts as a second failure. So things were pretty dark at that time, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I go see the doctor. She asked me what was going on. I explained everything, and she was super nice. Like, I thought she was gonna be like, get out of here, and firing squad. But she was actually really cool about it. So she wrote it off. She's like, you have no history of failures, blah blah blah. So we're gonna give you the chance, and which I was really grateful for. So you're basically in limbo. You haven't technically failed your test yet, but the stakes are high right now at this point. So I scheduled a retest, and I asked as many people as I could to help pace me that day. And it was actually kind of motivational. It was like something out of a movie. We had five people show up to help pace me, and 3 people ran in front of me and 2 behind me, and they would have me stay within that gap between them because they were running a certain. I think I just ran a light. They were helping me keep a certain pace, and it worked out perfectly. I ended up passing, and I'm good to go. So, coming and bringing this full circle, the best way not to fail a PT test is just to run more, because the run is what seems to give everyone the hardest time. And if you can do well in the run is where most of the points come from anyway. And it's taken, like I said, really seriously in the Air Force right now, failing PT tests. Is there anything else you can think of, Danielle, I can say about that?
No, well, you passed the second time, so that's good.
Or something somebody
Did it
wanted to
hinder
know?
you at all?
It was absolutely terrifying. Kind of like driving through Tucson. But anyway, let me know if you have any questions, and don't fail your PT test.